The wealthiest individuals and most profitable corporations should contribute a little bit more so that everyone can live lives of dignity. Along with raising the corporate tax, I'm asking for a 2% raise in personal income taxes on the most affluent New Yorkers.
Trim some of the waste and spending, but then how would you fund all the random government slush funds and jobs and positions? Up next, we're going to check in with New York City's new socialist far-left mayor, Zohran Mamdani, where things are already going amazing. Sunshine and rainbows and beautiful colors and everything. Just, they tax the rich and now they have free puppies for everyone. Oh, wait, just kidding. It's already backfiring and imploding in spectacular fashion. Shocked. This is my shock face, guys, that the far-left radicals' promises of free everything and we're only going to tax the wealthiest people are not, in fact, materializing. Here is the headline from the New York Post. Zohran Mamdani unveils record $127 billion budget fueled by proposed New York City property tax hikes. So yeah, we were just going to tax the rich. Oh, wait, actually, we're going to tax anyone with property, including middle and working class people, and the apartments they rent and everything will get more expensive. And oh yeah, we'll just take all of your money and increase spending on everything. What is not to love? All right, more from the Post here. Mayor Zohran Mamdani issued Governor Kathy Hochul a stunning ultimatum Tuesday while unveiling his $127 billion budget proposal, tax the rich, or he'll raise property taxes by nearly 10%. The eye-popping preliminary spending plan for the 2027 fiscal year would increase the city's budget by a whopping $11 billion from 2026 and contains few cuts. So he's vastly increasing the city's budget and government spending. Not even just keeping it at the same rate or slightly increasing it. He's increasing it by roughly, what's that, 10%, $11 billion? And then he's like, and also we need more taxes. We need to take more people's money because obviously we're going to spend a lot more money and they actually have to balance a budget. So then the question is, how are we going to raise the money? And in part, that could be done through some of the things he would like the governor to go along with, like increases in income taxes and increases in corporate taxes, but he can't do that by himself. Whereas he would need the state legislature, I believe, to help him enact that, but he could enact property tax changes. So anyway, more from the Post here. The Democratic Socialist brazenly claimed he would be, quote-unquote, forced to hit the pocketbooks of everyday New Yorkers if Hochul and Albany don't comply with his push to raise income taxes on the wealthy. He cast the 9.5% property tax increase, which would affect about 3 million residential units and 100,000 commercial properties, characterizing it as a regrettable, quote-unquote, last resort to close the city's estimated $5.4 billion budget gap. Yeah, it's a last resort while you're also hiking the spending by $11 billion. That's not what those words mean. We have no choice. We couldn't possibly cut anything from any of these programs or just keep spending levels constant and then we wouldn't need to do this. We really have no choice. It's a last resort. No, that's not what words mean. And you're gaslighting us, King. So I'm sorry. Hard pass on that one. I do not want to raise property taxes, Mamdani said while presenting his budget proposal. But the question is, who should pay these taxes? I believe it should be the wealthiest New Yorkers, the most profitable corporations. I believe they can afford to pay a little bit more. Here's a clip of him speaking about all of this before the state legislature. Listen to this.
I believe that the wealthiest individuals and most profitable corporations should contribute a little bit more so that everyone can live lives of dignity. That's why, along with raising the corporate tax, I'm asking for a 2% raise in personal income taxes on the most affluent New Yorkers.
So we'll unpack that in a second, because obviously there's some problems with that. But what I do find funny is that the obvious alternative to any of these tax hikes would just be to trim some of the waste and spending. But then how would you fund all the random government slush funds and jobs and positions? I don't know. How would you? So here's a clip from Fox News laying out the various DEI positions that will be quite well funded under this new budget plan. Watch this.
Equity, $4.6 million, Commission on Racial Equity, $835,000, Commission on Gender Equity, $260,000 for Department of Education, Chief Diversity Officer, $301,000 for 3 FDNY civilian Chief Diversity Inclusion Officers. There's a title for you. And $118,000 for an FDNY Chief Diversity Inclusion Officers. Is that necessary stuff? You can't cut that back?
Narrator, no, it is not necessary stuff. And you could save like $10 million right there by eliminating all of that. And it's just a tiny example. Obviously, in the grand scheme of these numbers, that would be a huge amount of money, but it's a tiny example. And then you could do that throughout the budget, find different positions that are absolutely unnecessary and superfluous and do away with them. And then maybe you could provide some of these new services or make buses free, though that would have some serious drawbacks, without actually increasing taxes at all. But that's not the point. The point is actually, with this tax the rich movement, the point is not just to fund necessary programs, and this is the way they want to do it. It's like motivated by envy and class warfare and just wanting to destroy and harm rich people. It really is. Because how else would you justify the fact that many of these taxes and the economic ramifications will be a net negative, and you're going to do it anyway because you just want to soak the rich, right? That's how I see a lot of this playing out. And some more details here that really call into question this, to the point where even many major Democratic city officials are saying this plan is terrible and what he's doing makes no sense. Anyway, the Wall Street Journal, editorial board writes, Mamdani takes New York hostage. He vows to soak the middle class if Albany won't raise taxes. Mr. Mamdani on Tuesday unveiled his inaugural $127 billion budget, which he amusingly called austere. Yeah, that it is crazy how he's increasing the city's spending by $11 billion. And he's like, and this is a very scaled back budget. And it's like, I don't really like my intelligence being insulted by people, but he does that a lot. Only in New York, kids. His budget is $10 billion, bigger than Florida's, though New York City's population is only 40% of the Sunshine State's. It's a $10 billion increase over this year. So that's a really fascinating statistic. You're telling me the government budget for the entire state of Florida is smaller than that of New York City by a lot, even though there's way more people in Florida than there is in New York City. I mean, obviously, there's city-specific stuff they have to administer, but that does indicate just the vastness of this budget they already have and are trying to make even bigger. And anyway, as far as this tax the rich idea is concerned, the biggest problem with it is that they already do, and that taxes you impose on the rich or corporations have economic impacts on other groups of people that can be harmful. So, for example, they write here, the top 1% of New York City earners pay nearly half of local income taxes. Yet Mr. Mamdani wants to squeeze top earners and businesses even more to fund universal child care, free buses, and other progressive dreams. On Tuesday, he reiterated his campaign call for Governor Kathy Hochul and the Democrats who run Albany to raise income taxes on millionaires by 2 percentage points and the state corporate tax to 11.5%. From 7.25%. That would raise New York City's corporate tax combined to more than 20%, roughly double the highest state rate in the country. New Jersey, 11.5%. The combined state and city top marginal individual income tax rates would rise to 16.8% for households making more than $25 million. Individuals earning more than $1 million would pay a top rate of 15.5%. More than 50%, including federal tax. Mr. Mamdani's attempt to extort Ms. Hochul over taxes is part of a broader battle in the Democratic Party. If he prevails, expect more Democrats to imitate his class warfare and hostage-taking. So that is the perspective of the conservative Wall Street Journal editorial board, and I agree. And I think there's a couple important points to notice here. So the truth is, he is not going to get his desired tax increases on the wealthy or on these corporations, but we should discuss this. Were you to actually give him what he wants and make the combined state and local corporate tax rates so high, that would have many harmful effects that don't just affect corporate fat cats. That's the problem. They portray this all in this demagogic way where it's like, you're going to get free everything and only the corporations will have to pay. Well, actually, economic research is incredibly clear that corporate taxes are paid in part through workers, through lower wages and lost jobs. And they harm competitiveness. Like that difference between New York City and literally every other state would be astounding and would certainly lead many corporations to leave New York City or to not open up offices or locate there. So much so that past a certain point, it might not even raise additional revenue, or at least will raise a lot less revenue than you expect, and will have harmful economic consequences for everyone, not just the rich. that will certainly dwarf whatever benefits the increases would bring. And even just raising the income taxes, you can only squeeze people so much in a state, especially at the state and local level, before they leave. And New York City's already had a problem of mass exodus. And if I was one of these people making more than $1 million or more than $25 million, there's no way in hell I would live in New York City. Maybe I'd spend half the year there or less than half or whatever you have to do with having multiple places, but I would never voluntarily give my money to be wasted by that bloated government and maybe fund the salary of some DEI commission, all that extra money when I could just spend 6 months in a day in Florida and then, spend the nice part of the year where it's not a winter and cold and terrible, maybe in New York City. Why would anyone not? And it's like you have to consider these basic incentives and realities rather than just this pie in the sky ideological obsession with destroying the rich and everyone's going to have free everything and it's going to be amazing. But that is Zohran's guiding principle, really, it does seem. And the other thing I'll say is it's just funny how much of a transparent lie the whole tax the rich narrative is. They always say this, whether it's AOC or it's Bernie Sanders or, yes, now Zohran Mamdani, we're going to give you free everything, but we're just going to tax the rich. We're just going to make the rich pay their fair share, ignoring the fact that we already have a very progressive tax system. We already tax wealthy people very heavily, and that the math doesn't add up. For the massive, expensive programs and free stuff they want to give everyone, you actually would have to tax everyone a lot, the way that they do in these Scandinavian countries, for example, that they point to as examples where your average people are paying 50% in taxes, not just the rich. You can't just fund the whole system by squeezing the billionaires. The math is not mathing when you actually do the numbers and run the analysis. And we're literally seeing this speed run in real time, this grift get exposed because Zohran isn't going to get the taxes on the rich that we've already explained how that they affect more than just rich people, right? He's not going to get them, so he's immediately just going to do a mass property tax that's going to hit middle and working class New Yorkers. So that whole, we're just going to tax the rich thing sure went out the window very quick, but that's what it would always mean. And so people need to not be foolish and not be snowed by these lofty promises that we're just going to take more from Elon Musk and then you're going to get free everything. It is a false promise. I don't know whether it's a lie or they genuinely believe their own delulu, but either way, it is divorced from reality, and it's already turning into an absolute mess in New York City right now under Zohran. But I can't say I'm particularly surprised. I don't know. Are you guys? Let me know in the comments. Do make sure you're subscribed, hit the like button, and all of that. And that'll be it for today's episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Do make sure you're subscribed, and we'll talk again real soon.